So good morning. I think a lot of you are very much looking forward to this morning's class because we're going to talk about a question that Vicky brought up. I mean, we're not really, we'll see how much time we have today. The next two sections are going to be about fleshig kelim that were used for milchigs and milchig kelim that were used for fleshig. Let me repeat that in English. Dairy vessels or dairy dishes that were used for meat, and meat dishes were used for dairy. And then officially, next week we have sticking a spoon into the wrong one. Because that, and obviously in both these situations, the criteria are going to be the same. How hot was it? Was it on the fire? How recently was the spoon used, etc. But that's basically the topic for today. Or how recently was the pot used, etc. But that is basically the topic for today, so we're going to do our best to dive right into it. Are we ready? Okay. So good morning. Welcome to Stepping Up Kosher for today. I believe we are at installment number 21. By the way, as usual, as we get towards the end of a course, of a topic that we're discussing, I start thinking about what the next topic is going to be, and I think I'm pretty settled that the next course that we're going to do after this for Sunday mornings is going to be going through the Siddur. Whoa, okay, I'm glad I chose it. I chose it just in my own head, but the reaction here was good. Yes, going through the Siddur in Hebrew and translating to English and explaining the background of some of the prayers and Pirush Hamilot, as they call it, the translation of the words, etc. I have a fantastic course that I found that goes through it beautifully, and we can all do it together. How does that sound? All right, so that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to follow this one. I imagine it'll probably be after Passover, because at this point we need another 8-10 weeks to finish this off. But look at the book. We're already way past the halfway point. See that? So
yes, please after Passover, because a few weeks before Passover.
No. Yeah. The few weeks before Passover are going to be about actually stepping up kosher. Right? We're going to be actually kosherizing our home. But yeah, so we'll kind of play this out till it finishes, and which will probably be around Passover time. And after that, we're going to start a new class. I don't have a name yet, but it'll be something about unpacking the Siddur and appreciating all the different prayers that we pray every day. Good morning, Shelly. Good to see you. Please help yourself to some breakfast, to a coffee, and join us. And that's kind of the upcoming class. Anyways, but back to Stepping Up Kosher for today. I think we're at installment number 21. We have been in the middle of a multi-week series about the laws of milk and meat. And today we are going to get into the weeds of the things that really happen when we really make a mistake with milk and meat. And what is that? We're going to start off with vessels or dishes that are supposed to belong to one of the two. In other words, it's supposed to be, let's say, a meat dish. Let's say it's a meat pot. And you use it mistakenly for a milk dish or vice versa. Cold, hot, how recently it's been used for the other category, etc., etc. And then I think next week we're going to go into what's if it wasn't a full dish, but it was just a spoon or a fork that I just stuck in, mixed around, pulled it out, and went, can't believe it, etc. So we're going to start it off today. Maybe we'll get to both of those today. We're going to try to have a hard cutoff of 10:30 because that's when the Hebrew school comes in. I need to teach the Hebrew school, etc. And then we'll next week hopefully pick up wherever we left off. Okay, so if you have cold meat, right? We always start off with the easiest. If you have cold meat that you have put into a cold dairy dish. Okay, so let's say you have a frying pan and you usually make pancakes in, which are very dairy, they have milk in them, right? And you put into it a piece of meat that is cold, or cheese, or vice versa. If you have a cold piece of cheese that was put into a cold dish, which is fleshig, and everything is clean, then you don't even need to rinse it off, meaning the piece of meat. You don't need to rinse off the piece of meat or the cheese that was put inside. You can just eat it. Why? Because like we said, it's cold. Cold doesn't transfer taste. Again, this is all assuming that the tray, let's say, that you put it onto was cold. Okay? And you're allowed to eat it. It was cold and clean. Yes, cold and clean. Very good. Yes. That was
specifying cold. What's the reason? It's hot. What are you saying?
If it would be hot, it would be very, very different. Because in meat, and thank you for asking me to clarify. We discussed it a few times in this class, but it's always important to review it. Meat and milk, everything changes when it becomes hot because then we say the taste is transferring. Even though... No, not faster. It transfers. It doesn't transfer, in other words. Just cold. A cold piece of meat and a cold piece of dairy, the taste doesn't transfer. In that case, the only thing we'd be worried about is the actual meat or dairy that might touch it. It might get dirty, right? The piece of meat might get a little bit of cheese on it. So that's why, in that case, which we discussed in the last class, you would have to shave off a piece. But here, we're not even talking about a piece of meat and a piece of milk. What are we talking about? We're talking about a piece of meat and a dish, let's say a pan or a tray, which is usually, yesterday you had a wonderful cheese and wine party, and you had a platter, that's your dairy platter, you used it to put out all your cheeses, right? Your Gouda and your this and your that, right? Now, it's scrubbed down clean. You put it in the dishwasher. It's all the way clean. And now you put a piece. Today you pulled it out. Maybe let's use the practical case, not you, but somebody, maybe a guest in your house, is trying to help you out, or a non-Jew who's hired help, etc. Right? And they're in your house, and you're having now a meat party, and you have cold cuts you want to put on. They put cold cuts on it, right? Yes, it shouldn't be done, of course. But if it's done, you can eat that piece of cold cut without any issue. Why? Because no taste has transferred. Remember, the tray is clean.
I'm talking about taste. I'm talking about transferring of the meat and meat.
Yeah, exactly.
If it's hot, fast.
1 second. So if it's cold, nothing transferred. If it would be hot, let's say that dish would be hot, there is taste from inside the tray that would transfer into the piece of cheese which is on it, or vice versa.
Something I don't understand. What
Yes.
you're talking about? What you're talking about? Something you mentioned on. You're saying the taste. What's the taste doing here?
The taste, because let's say you have a tray which is hot now, the taste which is inside the tray, because the tray is fleischiks. You used it yesterday for hot meat. That taste could transfer into the piece of cheese through heat.
Become faster?
No,
So
transfer through heat. Every vessel, we discussed this in previous classes, every vessel has little pores inside the vessel, and when it was hot, meat taste went into it, absorbed into it, and now when it becomes hot again, it opens up and the taste goes out. Does that make sense? Okay, that's the explanation behind it. So that's why there's a difference. That was a little review for why there's a difference between cold or hot. But back to what we were talking about. We were talking about cold. So you have a tray. It was used yesterday. Even it could have been used hot yesterday, but now it's fully clean, and you put something cold on it from the opposite category. The taste does not transfer because it is cold, and therefore you can eat that piece of cold cut which is on your milchik tray, no problem. Obviously, if the tray was dirty, so let's say it wasn't in the dishwasher, right? And it still has a little bit of grease from the cheese platter from yesterday, and now you're putting cold cuts on it, that's a whole different story. Then you would have to take the piece of meat. It's as if the piece of meat and the piece of cheese touch, and in that case you have to either shave off a piece, or rinse it off, or drop, or wipe it off, etc. Again, depending on whether there's grease or not. If there's grease, then it would need to be shaved off. If it's just a little bit of a little tiny piece, then you just wipe it off, and that's it. Yes, Avram, you have another question. What?
I forgot what I was saying.
Oh, okay, no problem. If you remember, let us know. Okay. Now, what about the vessel? Now, you have this dish.
I remember.
Yes.
It says lo tevashe gedi
B'chalev imo.
It says this is, I know the answer is good, but when you are doing this lo tevashe gedi b'chalev imo, it says don't cook. Why if you cook, then if it's cooked, we cannot. But how do you know just if they are not cooked?
So this is from the basics of milk and meat. We discussed this all the way at the beginning, that the Torah says 3 times, Lo tevashel gedi b'chalev imo, do not cook a kid in its mother's milk, and that gives us 3 prohibitions. Number 1, you're not allowed to cook it. Number 2, you're not allowed to eat it. Number 3, you're not allowed to have pleasure from it. So you're not even allowed to give it to a non-Jew as a present. That's the answer to that question. Okay, but now we're back to our case. We have a tray. Yesterday it was used for cold cheese platter. It was cleaned in between. Now it's used for cold cuts. We said you can eat the cold cuts, no problem. Mistake, no problem. You can eat it. It's all good. What about the tray? So the tray obviously has to be scrubbed down properly with a good cleaning, some sort of dish soap or something like that, or bleach or whatever it is, especially to get rid of any fats or grease that there might be on it. And you should make sure to clean it right away, not to wait 24 hours. Why? Because once you wait 24 hours, now you have the taste seeping into the vessel or into the dish or into the platter or whatever it is, and now the two tastes are completely mixed. So in other words, you should clean it off right away. So let's go through this properly. To summarize, you're hosting a dinner party at your home. You have cleaning help at home, non-Jewish cleaning help, and they use one of your cheese platters for meat. And they put out a whole charcuterie of meat on it, and they take it out. And you, as the hostess, you come here in the middle of the party, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. What do? Take all the meat off, move it onto a different platter. Good to go. You don't need to throw the meat out. Put it back out at the party onto a meat thing. Immediately in the middle of your party, take that cheese platter which has just had meat on it, scrub it down properly with dish soap, and you're back to square one. In other words, everything is allowed. The tray is fine, the meat is fine, and you're good to go back.
And we can make it become cold is good. When you make it become cold.
Okay. Now let's talk about what happens if you didn't wash it. Right? So what happens if you have, let's say, a pot or you have a spoon, and it's meat, right? And for 24 hours, it hung out together with cheese, or let's say with milk, right? So let's say, for example, you used a meat cup by meat cup, which is used with hot meat dishes. You had hot soup in it, whatever, something like that. And then somebody uses it for cereal milk. So far, really not that much of a problem because it's all been cold, right? Let's say they took a clean fleshig soup bowl,
Right.
usually used for chicken soup. So it's definitely very, very fleshig. Now they used it for it was clean though, and now they used it for cereal milk. So far it's the same case that we just mentioned, everything cold. The only problem is here that they put it inside the sink, and the milk that was inside it sat inside it, leftover milk from the cereal milk, sat inside of it 24 hours. What did we say? We said that 24 hours is basically like pickling, which means it's as if it had been boiling hot. The milk that was inside this bowl now, it's as if it seeped all the way down into the pores of the bowl, and now obviously it needs to be koshered, and it would need to be kosherized with boiling hot water or with a blowtorch. And the same thing, the opposite, obviously, if a cereal milk bowl was used for chicken soup. Okay? Fine. If you have a meat dish of some sort, let's say a chicken soup bowl, let's use it. You used it for cold, again, let's go with the same case, right? You used it for cold milk dish, so for cold milk meals, for example, cereal and milk, or the opposite. His example, actually, he brings an example, right after he explains it, he brings an example. He says, let's say a spoon, a fleshig spoon, that you used it for a little bit of yogurt or for cheese, etc. He says, if the spoon was clean, you can continue to eat it. Yeah. This is a little bit of a repetition of what we were saying earlier. You can continue to eat the yogurt, no problem, because the fleshig spoon was good. It's the same as our trays with the meat, with the example we gave with the cheeses and the cold cuts. It seems like he's being a little repetitive here.
You don't have to stop and switch spoons.
Well, you should switch spoons, but my point is, you can continue to eat the yogurt. The yogurt is not a problem. Again, unless the spoon had fresh grease on it from, it was just used for chicken soup, and you didn't even bother cleaning it. Right? Or you didn't clean it properly, you just rinsed it off a little bit, and there's still a little bit of chicken soup on it, and now you dipped it in, that's a whole different story, and then you should throw out the yogurt.
Did we find out if a sani cycle on a dishwasher
Oh no,
counts for...
you had given me that piece of homework. I did not yet.
Okay, I was just wondering, because that would be an easy way to do it.
Yes, correct. I have not found out yet about a clean cycle on the dishwasher, whether that counts with the dishwasher or not.
Right.
If it gets it to the hottest possible, hotter than ever.
Yeah, it's called
right.
sani rinse. Sani rinse. So
Sani
it's
rinse?
sanitary to get
Right,
rid of anything.
like to sanitize
super,
the
super
dishwasher.
hot.
Right, okay. I will still have to look into that. And by the way, it's fairly simple, and maybe in order to remember, I should just do it right now. I'm going to text my uncle, meaning Rabbi Hanoka's brother. You said it's called a Sani cycle?
Right.
Is a Sani cycle on a, like sanitary.
Sanitary. It gets rid of all the germs and everything, so it has to be boiled.
Sanitary come from sanitation.
A, the dishwasher, or B, a spoon which Okay, I texted him. So hopefully,
Thank you.
hopefully he'll get back to us. Hopefully soon, maybe even during this class. Okay. What about? Let's take things up a notch. What about if everything was hot? Right? Let's say you have, for example, Yehuda, come join us. Have some breakfast. Sit with us. Let's say you have a hot pot, right? A fleshig pot, and you made a mistake. Maybe they look similar. Maybe you have non-Jewish house help in the house, and they use that fleshig pot for a dairy dish. Okay, so now it's boiling hot. So the first thing we're going to ask you is, when was the last time that this fleshig pot, you're calling it a fleshig pot, right? Which means it was used for chicken soup in the past, and now you're using it for some sort of dairy, maybe a French onion cheese soup or whatever. When was the last time you used it for meat? Even though you're calling it a fleshig pot, when was the last time you made a chicken soup? Let's say this is Tuesday, and the last time you used it for chicken soup was Thursday, Friday, before Shabbos, right? And it was cleaned on Motzei Shabbos, on Saturday night. Right? So in other words, was it within 24 hours or was it not within 24 hours? If it was used in the past 24 hours to cook meat, let's say this is Sunday morning, and it just had your chicken soup in it just 10 hours ago, and now you by mistake are making something milk in it, then you're not allowed to eat the dish that is inside of it. Why? Because most fleshig pots, if it became hot, it absorbed into it much more than 1 to 60 of the pot itself. In other words, that's the amount of chicken soup that it has absorbed into the walls, and therefore the milk will not necessarily have enough of 60 to take away from the milk that's going into the pot. There won't be 1 to 60 versus the taste that's in it. Therefore, what you need to do is throw out the soup, start again, kasher the pot, boiling hot water or blowtorch, and start all over again. Now, what if it wasn't used in the past 24 hours? So then you have an interesting law. It is called noten tam livgam, which means that the taste that has been absorbed, the fleshig taste, the meat taste that we're saying there is inside this wall of this pot, is now considered not good taste. It's not enhancing taste. It's disgusting taste. It's old, gross taste, right? And therefore, when it comes into the milk dish that's inside it, it's not considered enhancing it, and therefore it's not even considered taste. Okay? So even if there isn't 1 to 60, it doesn't make the dish not kosher. So you're actually allowed to eat the dish, the food that's inside there. Let's say the dairy soup, the French onion soup that you're making. But obviously, once that's happened already, you should now go and you should kasher the pot as a just in case before you use it. 1 second. Let me finish up this point, then we'll take a question. The same thing is true for the opposite. If you had a milk pot that was used for a chicken soup, and it was used within 24 hours for a milk dish, same thing. Okay. Avram has a question.
If it's meat posting the meat bottle rishishim, also reverse work that also when you have a lot of meat, and one a little goes to the fillet. Both way the same thing?
That was last week's class, or last class that we did. I know. I'm just clarifying. And the law is that it has to do with 1 in 60.
And I know meat first, meat second, or meat which one?
It doesn't make a difference.
Both of the bottle b'shishim.
If it's batel b'shishim, it's batel b'shishim. Okay. Last law for today. If you have, so till now we've been talking about, let's say, a clean meat pot that you used it to cook something, milk in it, or vice versa, right? What's if it's not clean? What if it wasn't it wasn't a piece of chicken in there? That would be a whole different thing. That would be the case that Avram just mentioned, which we discussed last time we learned. But what if it had like a little bit of grease or something? Whatever. You used the chicken soup pot. It was still sitting in the sink. Obviously, we had emptied it out already, but there's like a little bit of, a tiny little piece of chicken stuck to the wall or whatever, right? And now you're using it and you're making a milk dish in it. You're heating up milk for hot cocoa. Right, so then the case is very different, obviously. Why? Because now you have an actual piece. We're not worried about taste that there is in the wall. You have an actual piece of milk or meat, vice versa, right? So then you need to make sure that there is 1 in 60, like Avram was just mentioning, to the actual piece, whatever there is that's left. And it doesn't make a difference. 24 hours, not 24 hours. The 24-hour rule is about a meat taste, which is inside the wall of the pot. Now it's disgusting 24 hours later, and therefore it's not called enhancing taste. It's called violated taste, or whatever, corrupted taste, bad taste, right? Tam pogum in Hebrew. I'm having a hard time translating it, as you can see. But when it's an actual piece, then it's not tam pogum. Then it's an actual piece of chicken, right? And then you need to have 1 in 60 towards whatever is left over inside that pot. Again, if it's, let's say, just some grease or a little bit of chicken soup that's left, say it's a tablespoon. You got to have 60 tablespoons of a milk dish that's inside your pot in order to get rid of it. Okay. Is that
pot now meat or milk?
That pot should definitely be kosher no matter what afterwards. The whole discussion here is whether you can eat the food that was made in it, because you might, especially if it's a big loss. By the way, this is one of those situations in which people will say, you know what, I just want to be extra stringent. I don't know if it's 1 in 60, or maybe it's for sure 1 in 60, but I cannot stand the concept that there might be a tiny little piece of chicken floating around inside my milk pot. I don't want it, so I'm getting rid of it, even if it is 1 in 60. Right? Obviously, by the way, I just want to say something because I started saying something just now as I was giving you an example. If it's an actual piece of chicken and it's floating around, then you have to take it out, obviously. Yeah. We're talking about, let's say, a teaspoon or a tablespoon of chicken soup, right, which is floating around in there. So you might want to say to yourself, I want to be extra stringent. I know it's 1 in 60, and I know it's bottle, I know it's completely gone, right? But you might want to say to yourself, I'm not using it anyways, right? But the pot should definitely be kosher because you can without losing anything. Okay, and with this we will conclude the actual pots, right? If you mixed up your pots, and next week we will talk about mixing up spoons. Once you took the wrong spoon, you mix the dish, right? By the way, I hope this clarifies for everybody why our breakfast has non-dairy cream cheese. I feel like I'm always apologizing for that. This is a fleshig kitchen, and I have non-Jewish help that helps me in the morning. And I make sure to turn on the fires. I make sure, et cetera, right? But imagine if there was like a cream cheese floating around. I should keep an eye the whole time to make sure that one spoon didn't go from here. I can't do that. I can't take that kind of responsibility. Right? All right. And with this, we will conclude Stepping Up Kosher for this morning. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you everybody on Facebook for joining us. And see you all next week, 10 a.m. every Sunday for Stepping Up Kosher.
What does the wife do on Shavuos, which is